So again, back to the text, being moved to action was to investigate the why of these things. Were they happening? Yes, but why were they happening? And then we'll see a point here later, and I'll repeat it, but I'll mention it now. But do you realize why Samuel, whenever the people came to him and they said, we want a king? Do you know why they wanted a king? It was because his two sons were off course. They weren't leading as they should have. So that's an admonition, that's a strong encouragement to us as pastors, that we have to make sure that we are grounded in the Word, because anything less could be leading us astray, and we're held responsible for that. So again, does his love, does the Lord's love echo through the pages of his Word, and does it move you to action? So investigating the why some of the Israelites had sinned, if that had come up, there's a phrase that I used in consulting for many years. I just want to be able to say that I did good at this point. Just do it once. There. Okay. Those are my marking points on the floor for the camera. My kids walked in, so I just want to share. Oh, and by the way, it's happy birthday to Tana. Hannah is 22 today. Happy birthday, Hannah. Just a little bit. So the phrase I shared in consulting, talking about looking at our personal faith choices, is you cannot master what you don't measure. Oh, I'm good enough. Well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know that you're actually growing in grace and in the knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ? What additional information do you have? How have you implemented that into your life? And how are you sharing that with others? Again, spoken most of all to myself. Again, so we'll look at that in very crystal clear view once we get to Solomon. And so we're going to move on to verse 4 now. If the report is true and such an abomination has happened in Israel, notice he's saying, if the report is true, and then leaves it at that, he further references it as an abomination, something the Lord detests. It's an abhorrent. It is beyond bad. So again, the Lord's not calling or mincing any words here. So if the report is true and such an abomination has happened in Israel, you must bring out to your gates the man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you must stone that person to death. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a man shall be put to death, but he shall not be executed on the testimony of a lone witness. Verse 7, the hands of the witness shall be the first in putting him to death, and after that, the hands of all the people. So you must purge the evil from among you. So we're going to stop right there and recap the verses there, 4 through 7. And the end of verse 4 is like finding out that the investigation has been proven, that these accusations are correct. These people have served other gods. They have bowed down to the sun, the moon, and the stars. And so verse 5 begins with what I refer to as the must of necessity. Not a must of option, not a must of I think so, or assuming, but the must of a sovereignly directed action that the Lord demands. Purge yourselves. As we saw a few weeks back, because the Israelites didn't purge themselves, Nebuzaradan was sent as captain of the guard for Nebuchadnezzar, and he destroyed them. He took them captive. So, again, when you know that the error has been verified, it required action, not, hey, let's get a committee together. Let's talk about this for a little while. It was immediate, swift action. And I would dare say that today's laws, and the reason there is so much unrest, is because there's such a huge gap between sin, or the error, or the crime, and the punishment that's associated with it. It's stretched out for years and years and years, so people forget. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. That's why he said, do it immediately. So the action was deadly, and those who gave praise or credit or worship to the creation instead of the Creator only met with one option, and that was death. So we learned previously about the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. That's giving God's credit to something or someone else, and then equating something evil as being done by God. As the Pharisees said, oh, he casts out demons by the power of Beelzebub. And that was their way of trying to reconcile, okay, we don't know how to stop this, Jesus, so we'll just make up a story here. But of course, that's ironic. House divided against itself cannot stand. So, verse 6, verse 6, I'm going to go back to it for a second here. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a man shall be put to death, but he shall not be executed on the witness of a lone witness. So the verse here sets the rules, because only by the collaborated testimony of a couple people or three could a man be put to death. And I found it interesting here that this error, as it's mentioned earlier, could be done by a man or a woman, but here it's just speaking as though it's the man. And I think there's a reason for that. So as we've noted many times, the male being the head of the female and Christ being the head over man, the male bore much greater, and still does, much greater responsibility for leading the family. You know, we talked about the comments that a wife or a daughter might say in his household, a vow, and that the father had the ability to disannul that vow or disavow it. But if he did not and something happened, then he was held accountable. So what great responsibility we as men have to where the practices of leading our home, leading our family, both in word and in deed. So the inference here could simply point to this reality that God held man more accountable. But regardless, it required two witnesses, and by doing so, it eliminated the sole or the one vengeful witness who, I just don't like Whitney, so I'm going to make up some story and, we're going to do this. And I had a guy I was working with, I got into a large company on my own, and he thought that I owed him something. And so he called down and made some trouble, and it cost me several $1,000s and 5 years worth of trouble. And, one lone witness, nothing backing it up, but that's like the idiot with the megaphone. They talk loud enough, they can cause some damage. So the Lord, by saying, it's not going to be the testimony of one witness. So I think I know the Lord had a much better testing back then. So also with the witnesses who came forth and said or got the person in trouble or for something that they had done, they were the first ones to throw the stones. So it wasn't like you could just make an accusation and walk away from it like, oh, yeah, I like to get people in trouble. I like to stir the pot. Okay, here's the stones. You're first. And so we know that they were the first ones to throw the stones, and then you think of the woman caught in adultery, and they threw the stones. And these people who were the first to throw them weren't without sin, but they were being forefront, and they were forced into a mindset of, okay, did I really see what I did? Do I really believe in my heart? Am I spiteful? Am I open? Am I following what God's leading here? So the way God lined it up was, okay, this isn't something you're going to be doing on a regular basis. This isn't something like every couple days, got to go to the gates again, because that would then be seen, Whitney's always at the gates. Whitney's always doing this. And so what does that mean do to my reputation then? No one's going to trust me. They're like, Whitney's just always trying to bring people in on trumped up charges. So I think that I believe that God shows us his order of operations here, making sure that for every, there's pros and cons, and there's an evening factor for, too much on one side. Okay, well, we've got the other witness, and then if the person would get up to the gate and then to stone, they might go like, okay, I really don't have the heart for this, or I don't want to do that. You had to think that through before you made the accusation. You knew that. You were going to be the one carrying the stones. And we go a little bit further here. You might have convinced somebody else to lie about this person, but at the end of the day, you had to throw those stones. You had to. And if we look back at the word phrase there, it says, the accuser will be the first in putting the sinner to death. The first to put the sinner to death. So that's a linear connecting the dots type of pattern there. And it could mean, and this is just me looking at the white spaces, that rather than just throwing the first stone, they were the ones who threw enough stones until that person was dead. Then the rest of the group came on through their stones. And so taking a life is extremely poignant. It is extremely powerful, and it can only be done with the utmost reverence and following God's laws. So God was like weeding out the people, like, okay, if you're looking to do this haphazardly and out of your own will and out of your own vengeance, it's going to be found out. You're going to be first and foremost. You're going to be first in front, and people are going to see that. So it was like a way of making sure that someone didn't make a federal case out of something that shouldn't have been. So, and I have a note in here. It's not like a person goes to their spouse, goes, yeah, I got to go to the gates again. I got to stone a few more people. It was a very isolated, it should have been seen as an isolated incident to prevent the abuse of God's law. So even if someone had it out for someone else and had gotten with another narcissistic person and they love tearing people's lives apart, God's not mocked. Nobody gets away with anything. You might think it's so. We were talking about this earlier. It's like, well, the Israelites were in bondage for 400 years. Did God forget? Absolutely not. When someone has wronged any of us, has God forgotten? No. He knows exactly, and he brings, he says, vengeance is mine. So God's not mocked. Those who did things or are accused in error, are accused falsely, God would make sure that they were also corrected, or they also got judgment, because he is a just God. So verse 8, and the courts of the law. If a case is too difficult for you to judge, whether the controversy within your gates is regarding bloodshed, lawsuits, or assaults, you must go to the place the Lord your God will choose. Verse 9, you are to go to the Levitical priests and to the judge who presides at that time, and inquire of them, and they will give you a verdict in the case. And it's interesting to me that they just mention three things here, as if this is the sum of all the cases that could be too difficult to judge. So we're going to combine two of them, killing or attacking somebody, and then the other, deciding what's fair between the stated position of two different parties. So we might look at it as one is physical in nature and the other is material. And so where would they go? To the place where the Lord chose to put his name. That's Jerusalem. And so then in verse 9, we have something that's quite directional regarding instructions for the people. They were to go to the Levite priests and, not or, and the judge at that time. So think of Samson or Jephthah or Deborah. And so I found the way verse 9 to be stated as very orderly. For instance, go to the priest and the judge, inquire of them, and they will give you a verdict. And then verse 10, you must abide by the verdict they give you at the place the Lord will choose. Be careful to do everything they instruct you, according to the terms of the law they give and the verdict they proclaim. Do not turn aside to the right or to the left from the decision they declare to you. Excuse me. So the summary, and I'm going to greatly paraphrase here, is the buck stops here, Israel. I'm sending you on my paths, and I'm sending you to follow them, and those whom I have put an authority over to you, just as I have told you before, don't turn to the left or to the right when I led you to the promised land. So now that you're here, don't turn to the left or the right from the decisions which the Levitical priests and the judge whom I've put over you tell you. So again, a very strict warning in those last two verses of this section within chapter 17. Verse 12, but the man who acts presumptuously, refusing to listen either to the priest who stands there to serve the Lord your God, or to the judge, must of necessity again, must be put to death. You must purge the evil from Israel. Then all the people will hear and be afraid, and will no longer behave arrogantly. So I find there's like a ton packed in just those two verses. It's obvious, given God's many instructions to them, that refusing to listen to God and his leaders would only be met with death. And again, it goes against, that's okay. We don't really need to go that far. The words are very clear. It's to purge evil. If you don't do it yourself, God does it. Which do you prefer? Well, I prefer that I be smart enough to go, okay, let's get off of this path that I'm going down, which I feel is wrong, and I know is wrong, and stay with the path that God has me on. So to purge the evil from Israel meant you couldn't placate it. You weren't going to have group discussions about, hey, what should we do about Johnny? And it wasn't to be delayed. Well, let's put this off for another 2 weeks. We'll have a committee look at it. It was right then, right there. You dealt with things immediately, because sin is like leaven. Once it just gives a little bit of time, it grows, and then it's harder to remove. So verse 13, just rereading it says, "Then all the people will hear and be afraid and will no longer behave arrogantly." So I wonder if that connects the dots for us. Excuse me. And we see that the law requires fear. The law requires fear and threats in order for people to, quote, not behave arrogantly. So, of course, we thank God for his grace, that we don't have to have that rod over our heads beating us. We don't have to fear his wrath. He has paid the price, finished work. But again, this is Deuteronomy 17. This is Deuteronomy 17. This is Old Testament. And so at this time, there's just the law, and there's no other options. And so now, let's go on to verse 14 and 15. And these are what we see as guidelines for having a king set up. And we're going to read actually 1 Samuel 8, 1 through 9 first, and then I'll tie it in to verses 14 and 15. "Now it came to pass when Samuel was old that he made his sons judges over Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba. But his sons did not walk after his ways, or in his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain, took bribes, and perverted justice." And this is where I mentioned this earlier. "Then all the elders of the Israel came together and said to Samuel at Ramah, they said, 'Look, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now make us a king to judge like the other nations.' But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, 'Give us a king to judge us.' So Samuel prayed to the Lord. And the Lord said to Samuel, 'Heed the voice of the people and all that they say to you, for they have not rejected you. They have rejected me, that I should not reign over them.'" So pausing there, his two sons, because he did not follow through and make sure that his sons walked as he did, the entire people, all of Israel, decided, we don't need Yahweh. We could get a God like all the other. Look, they're doing good. They've been here for a while. Who are we to question that? And we have to question that because God requires no compromise, no assimilation, no threading other threads of the world into the threads that he's given us. So verse 8, "According to all the works which they have done since the day I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, with which they have forsaken me and served other gods, so they are doing to you also. Now therefore heed their voice. However, you shall solemnly forewarn them and show them the behavior of the king who will reign over them." So if they thought Yahweh was mean to them, "Oh, you brought us out of Israel or Egypt to die here in the desert." If they thought that was bad, to have an earthly king with earthly whims and earthly evils and earthly sins, that's just a completely different kind of off the rails. And so, like I mentioned, the priest's sons, Samuel's sons, being errant and taking dishonest gain, and again, using material lust to pervert justice, it had to be purged. It had to be purged. And so Israel was put through a number of additional tests because at points, people who were meant to lead them did not. And we see that, unfortunately, rampant in today's culture with feel-good teachings and topical sermons that don't touch the heart of God, that don't share the need for repentance and turning away, that it's okay to just keep on going because it's part of the world. It's not that bad. We just need to fit in. And I encourage and I submit to you that the last thing we have to do is fit in. We are not of this world. We're in it, but we're meant to lead people. And so, someone coming up to me and saying, "Hey, thank you for the Bible you gave me 2 days ago. I'm reading it a lot." I mean, you see that in your own lives when you're talking to somebody and sharing with them. And what a joy it is when that person comes back and says, "Hey, I got a few questions for you." You got a second? Absolutely. That's what I live for. That's what we're here for. So again, the reminder to every pastor and self most of all, people will look to other authority figures if you do not lead them to Christ. Just that simple. Hot or cold, off or on, good or bad, black or white. Again, speaking most of all to myself. So back to verse 14 in chapter 17, taking that context that we've just read. "When you enter the land that the Lord your God has given you and have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, 'Let us set up a king over us like all the nations around us. You are to appoint over yourselves the king whom the Lord your God shall choose. So this isn't just, hey, we elected this guy. It's who God says. And so appoint a king from among your brothers. You are not to set up over yourselves a foreigner who is not one of your brothers. So they weren't to have, obviously, a non-Jew being king over the Jews. And Jesus was a Jew, so he fit the mold. He fit the pattern as he planned. So, again, that's a stirring indictment of the Jews. When and not if you enter the land and you turn away from me, it's you will. When you will say, give us a king like all the other nations. And we look at what happened whenever they demanded a king from Samuel. They just rejected Yahweh and accepted Saul. So, John 15:10, if the world hate you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of, there's the word, of the world would love its own. But because you are not of this world, sonship, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. And so we see that Christ is also telling us this in 1 John 3:13, marvel not that the world hates you. So this is God telling them ahead of time, hey, you guys are going to go off the rails. You're going to reject me. But the priests bore the responsibility, Abijah and Joel, because they decided that they were going to intertwine and compromise their walks, thinking it would only impact them, but instead it impacted the entire generation, the entire people of Israel. So it's not a surprise to God. He knows our frail flesh, and he knows when we give authority to others, other interests, other people, other forces, other fears, even doubts. So we know to worship God, and we know to fear not to swerve to the left or to the right, and to give everything to him. So verse 16. But the king must not acquire, and this is, I want you to pay attention to these last few verses. I found this fascinating. Sherry and I were studying it, and there's a gentleman who does a lot with the Jewish traditions and is a Messianic Jew, and I prefer to say Christian. I don't have those additional definers between Catholic Christian, Messianic Jew, or Christian or whatnot. We're Christians. And so, keeping that in line, the king here was not to acquire many horses from himself or send the people back to Egypt to acquire more horses, for the Lord has said, you are never to go back that way again. So Mark Biltz is this guy who has great study of the Jews as well as of the Gentiles. And so he makes this point here, and I'll get to it in just a second. But verse 17, he must not take many wives for himself, lest his heart go astray. You can't mix that up. That's connected. That's inseparably connected. If he takes many wives to himself, if he takes those that are not after Yahweh, that don't have a heart for the Lord, they will lead him astray. Ipso facto, it is a formula. It will happen. Last part of that verse, he must not accumulate for himself large amounts of silver and gold. So I've mentioned the Jewish midrash, which is basically the reading between the lines of the details of the accounts in the Torah. They attribute these two verses to Solomon's downfall very clearly. So if you remember what I said earlier, does his love, the Lord's love, echo through every page of his word, and does it move you to action? And so we'll see this with Samuel. So we have to investigate the why of our steps. Why are we doing this? And we have to investigate the personal faith choices that we make. And the reason I'm asking those is, again, to that phrase, we cannot master what you don't measure. If I am looking at things because it's same old, that doesn't mean it's the right thing. You could get into a church and it has its own set, this is the way we've always done it. And you'll see stagnation. You'll see a lack of zeal. You'll see a lack of pressing in. You'll see a great lack of knowledge across the body. And that is a terrible, terrible sight to behold. So, I know with Tim and myself, we're here to train you and share with you the depths of his word. So, as we saw, again, you can't master what you don't measure. If there's not a sincere personal filtering, then we have to expect downfall. We have to expect a correction. And we're going to see this with the epitome of Solomon, ironically, was the wisest man that ever lived. So first question, did the love of God actually drive Solomon's choices? Did he really love God? He chose instead to acquire lots of horses, lots of gold, lots of wives. Yet his choices were contradictory to what God clearly stated in his word. So it was his pride that somehow, some way, he could outsmart his own flesh. I'm better than that. Yeah, that guy fell, but not me. I'm smarter than that. I'm stronger than that in my own flesh. Well, that didn't work out so well. Didn't work out very well for his dad either. So it's a miserable failure to trust in ourselves and our own strength. And we can see our own selves in many of those that God shows us in his word. But my point is that the very written words of God Almighty clearly stated not to do these things, especially because it was the king. So this is why Solomon is such a perfect example of our own flesh. Let's pick up the text again in verse 18. We're just going to see, again, these are still the God's guidelines for setting up a king. And I'll remind us that it was setting up a king that wasn't meant to augment Yahweh, but to replace Yahweh. Don't misunderstand. That was not, we'll take this king like all the other nations, and we'll have Yahweh here, and he'll oversee. No, it was, we just want a king. We want to be just like everybody else. So verse 18, speaking of the king, when he is seated on his royal throne, he must write for himself a copy of this instruction on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests. So what do we learn from this first instruction? That the king must be, in part, a diligent scribe, a committed scribe. He had to have witnesses. He had to have witnesses that were Levite priests, not just anybody. So this is God's mandated accountability for the king, no less. So it continues in verse 19. It is to remain, these are the instructions, it is to remain with him, and he is to read from it all the days of his life. Oh yeah, I got that memorized. Yeah, that's fine, I've got that. It's back at the house. I'm good on that. No, you had to have it always with you, which is like carrying a small Gideon Bible in our pockets, always with us. So, finishing off that verse, he is to read from it all the days of his life so that he may learn, I love that phrase, he may learn to fear the Lord his God by carefully observing all the words of this instruction and these statutes. So, why did the king have to write it all out? So that he would learn to fear the Lord his God, so that he would learn by carefully observing all of God's words and his statutes. And of course, we can repeat those sentences, replacing the word he, meaning the king, with we, meaning ourselves, for us to also follow his guidelines and read his word diligently, daily. So we become the epitome of proof to others when we are constantly reading, when we are saying, hey, you went to church on Sunday. As I found out, the first time I've been there in a few years, I guess. And, you see that hunger. It's like, well, I'm looking for something a little bit more, which I find, that's awesome. People will never know who's actually searching unless we start asking some questions. Now, I hand a Bible to somebody if they're like, no thanks. Okay, get you next time. So I'll see you next week. But then people will take that Bible and they'll go, why'd you give this to me? And God gave me a phrase, which I wrote in each one of the Bibles that I've handed out to people, was, I want to give you my most valuable possession. It's the Word of God. And so I write that in there. I'm like, you're not going to have anything that's more priceless to you in this life. You read this Word. You have questions, you call me. Day or night, it doesn't matter. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. And so we look at Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord. Again, that's what the king is supposed to be doing. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. And then the definition of a fool then is one who despises that wisdom and instruction. But before we're going to connect these dots and just condemn Solomon wholeheartedly, let's look at verse 20, because I believe this gives us the unwavering and uncompromising why yet again. Verse 20, then his heart will not be exalted above his countrymen, and he will not turn aside from the commandment to the right nor to the left, in order that he and his sons may reign many years over his kingdom in Israel. So these are clear-cut instructions to Solomon. There's no guesswork here. If he had written it out and had recited it daily, that would be no surprise to him. Be no surprise to him. But wait a minute, it actually goes further. So if all we did was we focused on just these verses here in 18 and 20 and compare them to what Solomon actually did, then we'd have that perfect example of the failure of our own flesh as well, and why God's grace alone is the only solution that works. Ipso facto, end of story. And the only answer which doesn't have any of our works messing up his finished work. But to take this a step further, I want you to think of this. Solomon didn't just go opposite to God's directions, his instructions. He tried to slip in a word change. A word change. It's very ironic. He tried to slip it past the priests who were way better scribes than he was, way better students of the word. So I mentioned Mark Biltz, and he's got this 8-video series on Solomon. And so I was watching it. I think it was number 3 or number 4. And Solomon changed one word. He changed one little word. He didn't think words mattered. One little word. What was that word? Yod. Yod. And what was the penalty for changing any of the Torah? It had to be death. There was no tolerance for that. What does Matthew 5:18 say? For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot nor tittle of my words will pass by any means from the law until all is fulfilled. So back to Solomon. What Yod, that little letter, did, what did it do when he changed it? It forbade the king to take multiple wives, and Solomon changed the little word to make it seem to say that the king didn't, not can't, but didn't take multiple wives. And it doesn't even make any sense, really. But if you're the guy who's caught with his pants down and he's got all these different things he's doing wrong, what are you going to do? Okay, well, I just change the rules. See, I'm not bad. It just says didn't. But you're changing the word of God. You cannot do that. Words matter. That's why I cling to that, because I speak to myself. I can't translate something by myself and say, this is exactly what it means because it fits my lifestyle. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if Solomon had read and written that out and had kept it with him and recited it daily, that would have gotten into his spirit. And he would have said, hey, I wrote that out, like on the chalkboard, teacher. You got to write this out, Whitney, 1,000 times. See, writing that instruction out, you'll get that in your spirit. I go, okay, I can't do this. I can't do this. Yet he did, to his own downfall. So again, intentionally in changing an instruction of the word, of what God had given. And so he did take multiple wives. He did collect gold. And if you look at the Bible stories as kids, Solomon's just this great guy. He's the wisest man ever lived. To what end? When did that wisdom end? Because if we're looking here, it's more of a byword, something to avoid. Something like, okay, don't change Scripture. Look at the Word. Dig in. Get to the nuggets. Get to the diamonds. Figure out, okay, what is God saying here? Not what do I, Whitney, personally translate it to mean. Because I'm flawed. I'll fail. So I go out and I ask other people. I'll ask Tim. I'll ask, go online and looking for other folks. Hey, what have you come up with? Because I can't cling to just my understanding. So Solomon had no authority to change the text, even in that one little bit. But that compromise speaks volumes. He was placating. He was giving credence to his own sin by changing just that one little word. So fast forward to today. What's happened since God's given his word? Countless translations. Are they all accurate? No. If you understand why the Greek and the Hebrew were the two languages that were picked, it's because both put a number with a word. So to the Jews, gematria, the study of numbers, is everything. And for us, it's the words. And yet the two combine, just like this flock is the Jew and this flock is the Gentile, and God's going to put them together in the end. Those two languages, because you had the numbers associated with them, which is why God said not one jot nor tittle. He was measuring the words. That's why we can't just haphazardly translate something. And I say that as an instruction to myself, to carefully look at what I'm reading. Not just the translation because it's easy to read and move on. Okay, maybe I'm going to have to dig a little deeper. Maybe I'm going to have to study. Maybe I'm going to ask a lot more questions. It's going to take a lot more time to get this done. Because I can't make the mistake of, I'll just change one little yod. I'll just change one little dash. So, as I was saying, you can't change a yod. You can't change, as we see today, the NIV. Change entire sentences. You leave entire verses out of Scripture. And there's no fear. There's no trembling before God. It's business. It's business. And that's sadly what many a church has become, is a business, a transaction. Not hallowing the Word of God in every jot and every tittle. Because what God put in each of his books was explicit. It was perfect. And he didn't say turn to the left or to the right to translate it to make it easier for you to understand. He's like, dig into it. Study it. That's what I want for you, my children, that you understand what I have for you. That's where the gold is. That's where the privilege is. That's where the great gain is. So it's like the phrase, you wouldn't know error if you don't know truth. You can't tell a counterfeit $20 bill if you haven't studied a real $20 bill to the nth degree. So Solomon clearly knew not to take multiple wives. And when he was confronted with that error, his first thought was, Moses made a mistake. He's human after all. That yod shouldn't be in there. And so that's what the flesh does. Retranslate. Let's just retranslate that. That doesn't make sense. I had one guy, because we don't have any authority to change God's word, yet we do unconsciously. When we're reading it, like, that kind of convicts me. I think that actually means this, and maybe we'll skip over it or go a few more sentences down. Speaking of myself, most of all. But God redirects us back to this narrow path. So we can't say, well, that was just the translators of old. You know, they I don't know what they were thinking. That doesn't apply. Ever heard that? That doesn't apply to today. As if God isn't timeless. As if God is somehow, oh yeah, I wrote that a long time ago, but I guess I'm going to have to do some updates. Not at all. Not at all. And if you look at the 1500s, up to the 1500s, interesting fact that Mark Biltz pulled out, he said, if you look up to the 1500s, the term rapture always meant a physical carrying away. A physical carrying away. Harpazo. Then, in the 1600s, it shifted. And he pointed to the Catholic movement, that then it became more ethereal. And that's just what Satan does. Charles Spurgeon made a quote. He said, it's not, being discerning is not discerning or not seeing what's wrong and what's right. It's what's right and what's almost right. What's almost right. Being able to see, again, knowing what the original is, what that original $20 bill looks like so well, that when you pass off something that's really close, I still know it. I still look at it and go, I can't do that. That's a yod off. I can't do that. So we have to think outside of the box of what today's translators are trying to push. You know, as I said, you know, people are saying, it doesn't mean that anymore. I don't have to forgive my brother 70 times 7. It has to mean something else. And actually, I probably shared this before. I'd worked with a guy who, he goes, I know for a fact that hell doesn't exist. Okay? Why do you say that? He goes, well, it just doesn't make sense. I said, so, you know, you're saying that you know for a fact hell doesn't exist because it doesn't make sense to you. We're flawed. Our vision, God says what? My ways are so much higher than your ways. My thoughts are so much higher than your thoughts. So for us to retranslate and say, hell doesn't mean that, is a stirring indictment yet again against us to say, for us to go, okay, I'm getting into territory I shouldn't have even gotten to. So there has to be a punishment for sin. That's why hell exists. He is a just God, the only wise and true God. So if you don't think, however, that there's a punishment for sin, then what you're saying is that the infallible, unparalleled, and unmatched, ever positive, I know it all wisdom of man is sufficient. And it isn't. You know that. I know that. So what happens is we wind up being our own Achilles heel. We wind up as Solomon. He was his own Achilles heel. So he has pride, he had ignorance, and us as well, and the will to press on, to press forward, but in doing the wrong thing. If you think of just a yod, it's just a little word. And I said this before, but if you go off from shore a half degree, it doesn't matter that much a few feet, 20, 30 feet from shore. But you go a mile out, that half degree being off, all of a sudden, that matters quite a bit. And so that little word was a huge indictment against Solomon for not only choosing to do sin, but trying to change the word of God to make his ways, make Solomon's ways look as if they were in line with God. So here in Deuteronomy, it's our 40-day summary of the Israelites' experiences from Egypt to the front door of the Promised Land. Moses is pointing out that the Achilles heel of the people to them, and that their own pride, as we saw several times, harmed them. So I'm out of time. I had another couple pages I was going to share with you. But thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening. The Word of God is not something that is just like, and this shows how old I am. If any of you remember the Hardy Boys mystery stories, Nancy Drew, I read all those books. But this isn't another book in that series to read. Not at all. This is something that, just as Solomon was supposed to do, cling to it. Read it desperately with a zeal. So next week we'll go into chapter 18 and look forward to seeing you then. Let's pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we just come before you yet again, thankful for just the opportunity and the time to share without persecution, without interruption, Father. Lord, help us to filter our thoughts, to take every thought captive, to not desire to try to make our ways fit into the Bible somehow so that we retranslate unconsciously. Every dot, every tittle, every mark means something, Father, and we know that. We worship you and we ask you to make it abundantly clear to our lives. Give us safe travel home, Lord. We just commit all this into your care. For it's in thy name we pray. Amen and amen.